Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Doc Talk Live. This is Dr. Brad Goodman, your host. And this morning, I have my squash coach with me, Richard Millman. Probably a lot of our viewers and people who check this out really don't even know what squash is. So maybe that's the place to even start, Richard, which is to tell our viewers that may be linking into this at a later time what squash is. I should have had you bring a squash racket, but go ahead, tell us what squash is.
Okay, so squash is considered by Forbes magazine to be the world's fittest sport. And it's played in a room which is 32 feet long by 21 feet wide. And on the front wall, there is a 19-inch telltale, which is like a miniature tennis net. And the reason that it's become the world's fittest sport is that you have to keep the ball above that little 19-inch tin. And human beings, when they're in tremendous shape, have an amazing capacity to return the ball before it bounces twice. And they get fitter and stronger and very competitive. And the whole game is kind of like a chess game. If you can imagine the floor space is the chessboard, you're trying to put your opponent in the squares right at the back of the court multiple times to keep them out of the way, and then occasionally you make little forays to the front of the court. Unlike racquetball, which doesn't have that 19-inch telltale, you have to keep the ball above the telltale, whereas in racquetball, you can just smash the ball and kill the rallies. So as squash has grown up over the years, the rallies have become more intense, more varied, and longer and longer. In fact, the record professional match now is 3¼ hours. Now, if you're a tennis player, that might not sound fantastic, until you remember that in squash, you're not allowed to have any rests between points, and it's a continuous game, and that you are working at 2 or 3 times the intensity of the movement on a tennis court. It's a different kind of fitness.
Well,
Certain players are fit.
I love squash, and I think it's a great balance with tennis, whereas racquetball I do not think translates to tennis, and vice versa nearly as well. But the thing about racquetball is it's a lot easier to be a beginner at racquetball. When you're a beginner in squash, you can't even keep the ball going. So I feel like there's a very steep learning curve, if you will.
I think that's going to change a lot for a couple of reasons. And I know we're not here to talk about squash and tennis, but 2 reasons. There is a version of squash called Squash 57, which is played with a 57mm ball, which, I don't know, where am I? Ball there. And it's much bouncier and it's much easier to play. But also, a friend of mine in Switzerland has developed something called street racket. And if you haven't seen it, I really recommend that you go on and go to streetracket.com. And it's really simple. It's 2 wooden paddles and a ball and a chalk course, which you can chalk in your driveway, in your basement, anywhere. And it's just about basic hand-eye coordination skills. And what this sport is going to do is going to draw children and disabled people, firemen who are waiting to go out on the fire service into playing a racket sport. But it's just a foundation sport. And then from there, the children of 7, 8, 9, when the coaches see that they've got some ability, they'll say, hey, I think you could be a great tennis player, or you could be a great badminton player, or you could be a great squash player. And it'll be an easy entree to all racket and even other sports. At the moment, the leading ice hockey team in Switzerland is using it to train all of their top pros just for hand-eye coordination and change of direction and focus. And the world's ophthalmologists are really concerned about myopia because people in everyday life don't change distance focus. And they've really gotten behind street racket because they think communities that normally don't access recreation and health will be able to access this. And organizations like Roundtable and Kiwanis and Rotary and the Lions International are really supporting it because they see it as an opportunity to get health and fitness into communities that haven't had that opportunity before.
It sounds fascinating, and I definitely want to check it out. Um,
Great.
One of the, like I said in the beginning, Richard is my squash coach. He's a squash coach extraordinaire, and I miss taking lessons from you. And the reason I'm not taking lessons from you is because of the COVID virus. And
Correct.
if you could speak a little bit about, you know, you are self-employed. You're basically your own business, and people that work for various businesses are able, if they're not working now, to collect unemployment or to garnish certain benefits from the programs that the government has set up. How has the situation affected you economically in terms of the services you provide? Is
Well,
there a bailout for you, Richard?
there has just been nothing. I've made an application, as so many small business people have, for an SBA loan. They ran out of money. My bank has told me multiple times that they hope something will come through, but unfortunately, there is nothing at the moment. And as you know, I am a traveling professional squash coach who has made his living by working with groups of people all over the United States and Canada. And I go for either long weekends or single days. And I always say that people are my passion, squash is my vehicle. And I've been fortunate over the last 40 years to be able to help people move forwards in their lives by, helping them find out and develop assets that perhaps they didn't realize they had through this amazing sport, which you yourself enjoy. But of course, all the business that I had booked just evaporated. And my wife and I were extremely worried until one day, about 3 weeks ago, one of my clients, who I also am the distributor of iMask software, iMask protective eyewear, which is an invention from Australia. I am not happy with the sunglass version of protective eyewear. And I should just explain to your viewers that the squash ball is the perfect size to fit inside the eye socket minus the eye. And at one stage, before protective eyewear was mandatory, for instance, Canada kept records of eye injuries in all sports, a ranking list, and squash was the number one on that ranking list. After eyewear became mandatory, it disappeared from the injury list. And that's how important it is. So these eye masks that I'm wearing here are designed to not only protect you from strike of the ball, but they completely allow you to wear your eyeglasses, regular eyeglasses underneath. I've seen many people saved from being struck by a racket, which can be pretty tough. Squash rackets are about the length of a badminton racket, but much heavier than a badminton racket. Not quite as heavy as a tennis racket, but they're pretty, dangerous weapons when wrongly employed. But my client said, well, why don't you just take the attachment here and instead of just having this size of visor, make a full face visor? And I thought, well, that's an interesting idea. So I talked to my partner in Australia, Simon Stanbridge. He's our manufacturer and the owner of the company. And he said, well, do you think anybody would be interested? And I said, I think that they would. My client said so. So he put together a template, and he sent it to me, and we both went to local plastics companies and had these templates cut out. And that was for him just over a week ago, and myself about 5 days ago. And he handed one of the made up visors to a nurse in Hobart, Tasmania, who just went bananas because they're very, very tough. We've tested them to stringent sterilization standards. We even baked them in an oven for 10 minutes to see what the effect was, and there was no effect. They come apart in different pieces. This is a toweling microfiber sweaty. You just throw this in the laundry with your t-shirt and it completely destroys anything that there is there. And you can buy multiples of these. And of course, medical people often are intensely working for periods of time. They need to stop the sweat coming down in their faces. You can wear various kinds of glasses underneath. Dentists seem to really like them. And a very long story short, my friend ended up selling 600 in 4 days. He and his wife were up in front of the television till all hours of the night putting the things together. And I made 120 of them because I didn't know how they would go. They're very, very tough. They're made of 0.06 polycarbonate, so they're strong enough to stop a squash ball, but they're also very sturdy, and so you can throw them into the sterilizer time after time after time. And yesterday,
have you sold any to the hospital yet?
I haven't sold any to the hospitals, although I am hopeful because a very good friend of mine in New York is in the process of developing a sterilizing machine for all surgery equipment and theater equipment. And the one piece that was missing was they couldn't find a mask that wouldn't melt in the sterilizer. And then I talked to him about this, which has literally been through hell in the testing. And I can, share the testing with anybody that's interested. And he said, I think this could be the missing piece. And he deals with a supplier that deals with most of the hospitals in the United States. But I'm still locally trying to find people who would like to try them, because in Australia, they've been certified by the Australian Health Registry of Therapeutic Goods, and they have a nice certificate now. And the ambulance drivers and workers, and EMT workers and nurses are just going wild about them. He sold 600 in a few days. The hospital ordered another 470. I sold some to some folks here in Atlanta. And then a friend of mine who was a dentist said to me, the dentists have just been forgotten. We can't get any of this stuff, any PPE. And then yesterday I got a lady from Saskatchewan who's a dentist, ordered 100. A chap ordered 25 yesterday. The day before, chap who's a law firm owner ordered 25 for his law firm to just provide a barrier, because of course when you're wearing this thing you can't touch your face, and so
they're not that expensive, as I recall. How much are they, Richard?
Well, we have a
How much are they?
We have a retail price for non-medical people, which is $45. You remember the regular iMask is $75. We tried to really drop the price because of the crisis. But for medical people, one unit is $29. That's as low as I could get it for one unit. And then we do price breaks up to the cheapest we can do it is 500, $25 a shot, and we pay the postage on that. But of course, the great thing is you can use them time and time again. Each individual person can put their names on them and personalize them, keep 2 or 3 of them and keep turning them over and over and over, one wearing, one spare, one sterilizing.
Why can't they just be chemically cleaned? Why
I
do you
don't
have to
know.
use their
You know, they might be able to. This part definitely I would put in the laundry. I
Sure,
mean, I normally put
sure,
it
but
in with my t-shirt, or however you launder your clothes. This is just great when it goes in there. It comes out nice
just
and
like they
fluffy.
clean, just like they clean the shopping carts, the
Right.
handles of the shopping carts. When you push a shopping cart, you could theoretically clean that. Um, but I certainly see the need for it, especially, there's not, this is what I have, right? I'm in my
Yep.
surgery center. Something
Yep.
more, and it's if you're like an EMT, if you're an anesthesiologist, if you're dealing with the airway where
Yep.
people can sit, cough, where they can project aerosolized um, particles, um, that's a much better protection.
And
And
I
not
think
only
you've
that,
got
you can wear the mask as well. I mean, so you've got it all covered.
I think
Well,
you've got pictures of the full face mask, and
yes, I
that's
think we
what I
put them
like about
up.
it. The full shield goes all the way down there, and it does. There's no obstruction. I actually used the full shield that you've got pictures of to play sport with the other day, and it didn't have any effect. There's no fogging, um, and I'm also trying using uh, quality cycling and running anti-pollution masks that have N25 and N99 filters that you can replace, and that makes the breathing a lot easier.
Yeah, that's great. So, it's amazing. Your accent is not American, but there's a little bit of American ingenuity here, Richard.
Well, my dad was born in Portland, Oregon, so I have a little American in me.
Okay, well, I appreciate you doing this. What is the status of the squash trip in July? I'm just curious.
I think unlikely at this point. I'm talking to my folks in Great Britain. They are in as much lockdown as we are. In fact, this morning I was in a conversation with a partner in this business, and we're going to start marketing these over there as well because they seem to really not have the opportunity. One of the other things that's happening with this is, as you know, many people in underprivileged communities, black and brown communities, are disproportionately dying because they don't have access to the equipment that's needed. And in squash, we have this wonderful organization, the Squash Education Alliance, and I am in talks with them about simply buying the full face shield to give to all of the children from those programs so that they've got some kind of protection, not on the squash court, just out in society. Because as you know, the cloth masks get damp. They are very difficult to um, keep clean continuously. And even if you've got a cloth mask on, the N25 mask, it's so easy to then touch your face. And that's what is happening to infect people. If you have a full face shield on, you just can't touch your face and you're far better protected.
I understand that they're starting to open up things in Georgia where you are. Is that true?
Yes. And, I mean, maybe we will end up selling some of these, but it's for the wrong reason. I don't want, you know, tattoo parlors and hairdressers needing these because they are forced back into business because they can't make a living, while the virus is, on the increase and deaths are on the increase. I can only think that there's going to be a spike. I mean, I'm not political, but I'm very worried.
Sure, sure. Well, Richard, I want to thank you for taking the time to educate our viewers, and hopefully Christy can put up some information about how to reach you if somebody's interested in ordering these as part of PPE. But maybe just say it right now how we find it. Go ahead. How do they
So,
find you, Richard?
but for medical people, please just contact me 843-323-7340, millmansquash@gmail.com. And for non-medical folks, iMaskUSA.com, and you can just buy one right there on the website, and it'll get sent to you. The lead time for larger orders right now is 7 to 10 days.
It's good to know. I appreciate you taking the time, Richard. I look forward to working with you, hopefully in the near future. I was getting better for a while,
No,
I
you
was
did
improving.
great. You did great. And I also want to get outside and play a little bit of street racket with you, because I think you would have a lot of fun and be able to pass that on to a lot of people as well.
Well, I want to get on the tennis court with you, and I want to work on sort of seeing what we can do as far as using some of your coaching strategies in squash and see how they apply to the techniques in tennis.
I'd love to do that. And as Georgia, unfortunately, is opening up, if Alabama comes after it fairly soon, maybe I'll be able to get across there. But let me tell you, I'll be bringing my iMask Plus face shield with me.
Oh, great. All right. I'll see you soon, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, I think